So, again, I find myself in a position where I'm not really, it's not best for me to go out and tell people what to do or like condemn other people because of the color of my skin, who I'm, talking about. Like, it's better for me to just like show instead of telling people. But I'm honestly a little bit tired of having the same conversations over and over again. I kind of want to do new content if I'm going to continue to pursue this on the channel. It's just, honestly, this stuff is tiring because the other side, it's usually the same statements over and over again. And patience wears thin after a while. So instead of doing an interview where you hear the same stuff, the same excuses, and nothing goes anywhere, I'm going to try and explain what my side, which in some cases includes Asian men, what I believe that we feel. Feel free to disagree with me in the comment section, and what can be done to remedy the situation overall. Personally, I don't really give a damn. Like, I've checked out. But if we're going to talk about actual solutions, as somebody that's interviewed a lot of people on this issue, I think I can provide some insight. So here we go.
Granddad never mentioned that there were men as dark as this. Wow, look at that nose. He's just like a pig. He's a monster! Hi.
The first thing that I would say that the other side really should do at this point is understand the resentment and where it comes from. For many Asian women who are oblivious because they live in a fantasy world where they're the most desired and they believe that they can treat people however they want to treat them. This is all new. All of these people are criticizing me for dating white guys. What is this? I've never been critiqued before. I know, it's fresh. You've never been held accountable for anything. You never felt as though you had to be held accountable for anything. I know, being held accountable for things that you do that are wrong are things that other people have to deal with all the time, but you don't. But like, and again, I have, even when I say that, like, I'm gonna get comments because I can't say anything in regards to how I feel. It's always a matter of letting somebody else come on who has hurt me to tell me how they feel about my anger. So great, but it's not just the reaction of what you're doing now, like in Yowei Shaw's NPR podcast. That's the problem. It's what we had to do to get here so that you would acknowledge it, and what you're doing now to diminish what's going on that makes people angry. To get to a Yowei Shaw or a Celeste Ng or Natalie Tran, we had to deal with years and years of denial. There was Seeking Asian Female. There was John Lennon and Yoko Ono. There was Julie Chen Moonves. There's so many examples of white male Asian female that have been hidden under the cloak of yellow fever. Like, blaming a white dude for every single thing, but getting on your knees for him the second the doors close. Like, this was not something that was new for many of us in the game 5-10 years ago. This was a reality. The only difference between now and what it was back then is that back then you couldn't say anything because you would decrease the already like small chance that you had, especially if you were black, to date somebody who was Asian. This was what it was in, I would say, as early as 2010, even earlier, 2013, even more recent, 2013, 2014. Hey, you're a non-white guy who likes Asian women, or you're an Asian guy that likes Asian women. You see them all dating white guys, but condemning you for your preference. Hey, why do you get to have a preference but I don't? Asian women don't owe you anything. So what if I said nasty things about Asian men having a small penis? I can say whatever I want, do whatever I want. It's whatever. Feminism, da 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 da. Like, you're in a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantaged position, or at a disadvantage. But if you point this out, you get punished for showing the disadvantage. Why don't you date other women? There are other women who aren't like that. No acknowledgement on the other side. No sense of accountability. That is a matter of years and years and years. And that bursted. So in order to deal with the frustration and the anger, what has to be done is acknowledging the years and years of pain that comes with denial and dehumanization of non-white men, including Asian men, that led these men to being angry in the first place. If you're just going to sit here and listen to a podcast and say, oh wow, what this woman did was absolutely messed up, but it's not every single one, and not acknowledge that this was a pattern of behavior that had been going on for years prior, that a lot of men have been dealing with and just sat quietly about for fear of being labeled as an MRA or an incel, then we can't get anywhere. You have to acknowledge the hypocrisy and the racism prior to all of this, and the double standards prior to all of this, to begin healing the other side. And in terms of what is happening now, there's this sense of always trying to control the narrative or downplay what's going on. Let's not focus on the actual Asian women that are causing pain to men of color and Asian men. Let's focus on the reactions, which are sometimes very crazy, but the reactions to said pain, and say this is why the other side is so crazy and why we can't have a conversation with them. We know why you're doing it, because you don't give a damn about what we've gone through. You just want to be able to do whatever you want and just diminish whatever has to be said on the other side. These men have experienced years of pain prior to this and are experiencing pain now that they have been punished for expressing. You can't continue to punish them in ways that make them feel as though they are the problem for something that was not their fault. So when a person hears like an Asian woman say that they don't find Asian men attractive, in 2019, that Asian man who heard that and has experienced that should be able to express how that feels for them completely, without an Asian woman trying to twist it or trying to say that somebody on Asian identity is saying something ridiculous. Like nothing. Like it just, that needs to stop. Like you inflicted pain and you need to acknowledge that. And taking the worst parts of the other side and exasperating them or exaggerating them to the point as though that's all they're about and they are just completely too far gone, in order to make yourself look innocent for what you're doing, is going to add so much more resentment and anger, and only shows that you still can't get rid of this victim complex that you have in this scenario. Another thing that needs to be, if you're serious about this, the attempts, like I said before, to try and diminish the other side is something that you need to acknowledge, but the exploitation, and I mentioned this in the last video. I needed to make that video, even the one that I deleted, because the woman in that title is my dream girl. So, like, I've been in a scenario personally where I felt as though I had to put up with the shit that women like her did in order to have a slight chance. And in these videos, I've found the confidence within myself to say somebody's beauty is not going to put me in a position where I feel as though I can't hold that same person accountable, because that feeds into that entitled victim mentality behavior. If we say that some women are going to be able to exploit men or take advantage of men, and others aren't because they're hot, like, we feed into that idea that when they do get criticized, they don't deserve it. So having the courage to be able to point out something to somebody who I, in many cases, would have done everything to try and get a date with, it relieved me the pressure of feeling as though I had to sacrifice my masculinity or my pain for the sake of appeasing somebody who didn't really see me as worth their time. But nevertheless, this exploitation needs to stop. I'm not going to rehash the whole idea as to whether or not they're exploiting it, whatever. The way in which some of these women are going about it is a new low. You can do it you can discuss this issue in all different ways. You cannot discuss it at all. That's fine, whatever. We can critique how you discuss it or whatnot, whatever. But if you are looking at this as a business opportunity, in a scenario in which you've shown no concern about this before, you will get called out, you will be condemned, and you will be vilified. And I believe that it is, given the sensitivity of this topic, for the other side to at least, if they want to have people who say nasty things about Asian women online be condemned, then they should be able to condemn the women on their side who are trying to exploit the men who've been hurt for years. Like, this isn't, and we're going to get into this later, this isn't a scenario in which you can do to us what we can't do to you. I really can't stand that in some of this debate that we're having over here. But if you want the side that has had pain inflicted on them to condemn the worst parts of their side, which honestly you have no right to even ask, in my opinion. But if you want that, won't be one of those guys that does that, but if you want that, you need to, at the very least, be willing to condemn the people who continue to inflict said pain on your side, who represent the worst of it. And if you can't do that, then I don't want to hear about anything that you've heard online, any email that's been nasty, because once again, you want, but you can't give. It always comes down to like you and your desires are more important than everybody else's, which needs to stop. Some things that Asian women can do to make men less angry about like the power dynamics in this particular issue, because like here's the thing, yellow fever, I'm not going to deny that there aren't guys who say creepy messages online. I'll be perfectly honest though, I think a lot of the reason why some of these women get these messages is not because of the way the media portrays some of these women, but because of how some of these women act. Julie Chen Moonves does more damage to Asian women than an Asian film that has a white guy as the lead. You're sending a green light at that point for what you really want. And until you fix that, I don't want to hear about whitewashing in films and white male Asian female couples, brainwashing you into desiring white guys or making you play roles that are submissive. Like, cut the shit. But nevertheless, my problem with the yellow fever stuff isn't just the hypocrisy, which I've mentioned probably a billion times on this channel at this point, but even when the women aren't being hypocritical, which is a fraction of overall the issue, a lot of these women will still benefit from the scenario. So they'll make a list of like, here's what you need to do to date Asian women. The fuck? I mean, like, you're the one that just said that you didn't want Asian women because, you didn't want people to like you because you're Asian. And then now you're going to make a list of things for what you desire in a candidate. Like, do you see white women, black women, Hispanic women doing that? I'm sure there are, but not to the extent that Asian women do it. And when they do it, it's usually a scenario in which you say, this is how you approach women in general. Like, you're not some special flower that needs an extra set of demands that is separate from everybody else because, like, you should be held to a different standard. What it comes up, or whether or not you realize it, I think for a lot of men, the list of demands that you ask for in a man comes off as less of, oh, well, you need to be sensitive to our needs, and more of like, I know that we're in high demand, so I think I'm going to be able to ask extra for what I want relative to other women of other races, and therefore I'm just going to exploit that, just like you do when you go on Jubilee and put yourself around a bunch of people of color and act like you're progressive all of a sudden. Like, if you hate so much the fact that people like you because you're Asian, don't take money from people who try to talk to you about this stuff. Don't make a list of demands from said people that like you because of your race. Don't do anything that makes it seem as though you are trying to benefit from a scenario that you say you hate so much. Even if you don't hold yourself to the same standard, or you do, that doesn't matter. Nobody likes being told, particularly if they're in a position of not having power, which a lot of these men do, being told by the women that they desire exactly what to do to gain their interests. You wouldn't like, even though I don't agree with you on yellow fever, you don't like being told like how to, approach men, or like what you should do and stuff like that. You don't like it. You don't like it at all. But you have all the lists in the world, to tell men, this is what you need to do. Like me don't like me because of my culture. Meanwhile, another one will say, if you want to date an Asian woman, try and learn their culture. Like, you contradict yourselves all the time, and I understand that two women are different, but understand that they'll get advice from a dating coach that says, just get to learn their culture, and then a bunch of women will say, oh, he likes anime? That's not attractive at all. Like, to a Japanese woman. Like, it's just, a lot of you are impossible. And there's just this sense of entitlement that comes with creating these lists that is really, really fucking irritating. Because you wouldn't be doing that if you weren't somewhat getting off on the fact that you were getting all this attention. And a lot of the women that are making these lists, not all of them, but a lot of them are overvaluing themselves. Because honestly, a woman who would be looking for something serious wouldn't feel as though they could make a list of demands for things. Like, you would be able to just show the worth that you had, and you wouldn't feel the need to feel as though you needed to, like, tell people what you were looking for. Like, the men that would give you what you wanted, like, they would come to you because your class would demand it. And at this part, the last part I'll say is the men of color perspective is that I think one of the things I like to point out in these videos is to show the power dynamics of these relationships for Black and Hispanic men relative to Asian women. And it's not just, the parents may not be into it, or Asian men may get salty and not want, might try to sabotage a relationship, which has happened to not only me, but people that I know who aren't Asian. Like, Asian men have tried to sabotage relationships that these men were trying to pursue with Asian women, which, again, like, I understand what Asian men are going through, but, no. That's too far. I think that women who are Asian, understand that they are desirable, and that in many cases the Black and Hispanic men that they're with are the less desirable of the two. And if you pick up on that and you sense that, a Black or Hispanic man has to be very wary about the fact that this woman may feel like they're doing something by dating their boyfriend, or they feel as though, like, they can get away with certain things with that boyfriend relative to their a white guy. Like, a white guy might be able to do all these things to an Asian woman and know that Asian woman will still pursue him. It's kind of the same thing for us. And, because if this guy likes Asian women and Asian women don't really like Black or Hispanic men, but they see all these guys still wanting to pursue them anyways, why wouldn't you get off on that? Which is something that I think people should be aware of who look like me. But more importantly, it's the double standard that I have a problem with. It's the idea that because of that, you can do certain things that are disrespectful, that are not disrespectful to, like, if we did to you, then you would just leave. I think one of the things in Celeste Ng's article, Jen Feng, that I mentioned, the white guy, she was mentioned, somebody said that she dated a bunch of white guys before she married a Black man. I think, like in Celeste Ng's case, she did the article because of the fact that it hit close to home. I think Jen Feng sent that quote because that hit close to home for her as well. Like that, there are scenarios in which even when Asian women do date men of color, it's a situation in which the Black or Hispanic guy is held to a different standard, or that Black or Hispanic guy isn't their first choice. And deep down, the Asian woman feels bad about that or knows that and doesn't want to admit it. And, or the fact that they're even just holding a Black or Hispanic guy to a higher standard. While they do policies to make sure that it's harder for those guys to reach that standard to begin with. But, that's not okay. And the fact that you can casually have that belief and still be able to date a Black or Hispanic guy of said high status. Yet, if somebody says to you that, like, I'm pointing this out and I'm not okay with that, that makes them lose whatever little chances they have with you. Like, stop. The whole punishing people for your bullshit needs to stop. one of the things that gets me very angry is that, like, when I hear stuff like on NPR's podcast, like, oh, you know, I can't date, I was rejecting black or Hispanic faces, I use them as an experiment. There's no sense of, like, talking to black or Hispanic men who hear that and saying, well, I've been rejected by Asian women before and that hurts. There's no platform that Asian women want to give for that. But, like, if Asian women want to express why they do that, they get a platform on somebody else's channel like my own. They can openly explain why they're being that racist. And my reaction to that is more offensive on my platform than the ability for them to have that disrespect and then explain why that disrespect is something that they have internalized on the platform of somebody who is feeling that disrespect to begin with. That was wordy. Putting it another way, it is not a scenario in which an Asian woman can come onto my channel and disrespect me, show me why they don't look at me as equal to a white guy, and then I can go onto their platform and explain why I don't consider them to be really respectful, or like they're gold digging and stuff like that, all the negative stereotypes I have for them. It's a matter of they can come onto my channel and disrespect me on my channel, and that disrespect is less offensive to society than my reaction to that disrespect on my own platform in which I'm being disrespected. Like, we're not even close to getting this whole idea of, like, equality in terms of understanding that when one side does it, it's just as bad as another. The fact that we're not having a discussion, like black and Hispanic men are not having their voices heard on platforms in which the ones who are doing the offensive things are listening is one thing. But you still feel as though, because you're the desirable candidate, that you can have said belief, go onto some platform to express said belief, and then still get a date. But the person who deals with that can't get it and reacts to that in any way, can't get a date. Like, how much of an entitled princess do you have to be to believe that you can walk around this way and still not get punished for it? But if that guy says he likes Asian women, it's a deal breaker. But you can have all these racist beliefs, all these casual beliefs. You can say openly that you will date a white bartender over a black guy who goes to Harvard, and you can still get a black guy who goes to Harvard. Like, you're too far gone from where you need to be in terms of being able to respect men of color. And every single instance in which you act like the victim in regards to just saying that and feeling as though there needs to be no reaction for that just shows that everything that is said on the other side in many cases is just justified. Because you really need to be put back down to earth. A lot of these men who say things about you is because they feel as though you believe you're above the law, and that this shit that you do is perfectly okay, and casual racism on your side is perfectly okay, but the other side can't say anything without being labeled as an incel. And it's tiring. It's fucking annoying. Like, it's... And even just reacting to this in this way is going to get people to say, oh, he's angry, he's going to explode, he's going to do something nasty. Like, I literally have to sit and listen to other people tell me why I'm nothing, or that how they're the victim in something in which they've caused pain to other people for. I can't say anything. Even this video, if an Asian woman watches it, oh, I don't want to come on this show anymore. The fuck did I do? Like, that's the resentment. It boils down to the fact that you can do this and that the other side can't say anything without being punished. It would go a long way if a black, Asian, or Hispanic guy can go to your face and say, you have done this to me, you have hurt me, you have devalued me, and I am not okay with this. And you do nothing to judge that person or treat that person any other way, in a different way than you did prior to hearing that statement. And if it happened on your platform, and if it happened unapologetically without you trying to diminish it in any way, I think that would go a long way. But I don't think you're willing to do that. I think a lot of Asian women have gotten drunk on the power dynamics and the ability of being desired as a potential romantic candidate. And I think that a lot of the reaction from their side comes from this sense of feeling as though they shouldn't be, like, why should these men don't understand, like, I'm the desirable candidate. If they critique me, I'm not going to date them, I'm not going to talk to them. So why would I want to, like, this isn't how this works. That is how this works. You're not above the law. And every time you do hurt a man of color or somebody, or you are a hypocrite, you will be held accountable just as like you want to hold other people for what they do to you. And when you get that through your head, which a lot of you haven't, but when you get that through your head, I think that's the first in many steps to remedying the situation. Personally, for me, I don't really give a damn what you do. I'm here to report. I'm here to show. I'm here to give people on the other side an ability to have content so that when the opposition comes at them and acts like they're crazy, they can point to my work and say, go fuck yourself. And I take pride in that. But you're not the victim. You have inflicted a lot of pain. And until you acknowledge that in a way that doesn't, like I said in episode 115, until you acknowledge that in a way that doesn't make these people look like the victim, like, it's just going to get worse. You need to own it. That's just what it comes down to.